Welcome back to the channel, guys. I hope you're doing well. As you can see behind me, we have a new truck. It's a 2014 Ford F150. I'm really excited about it for a couple reasons. One, it's got the EcoBoost engine, which in my opinion is a really good engine. It has lots of power, and overall I'd say it's reliable if you keep up on maintenance. And two, because I'm going to be turning this truck into an overland truck. If you don't know, an overland truck is pretty much an off-road vehicle that you can camp out of, and this truck's a really great candidate to be turned into an overland truck for a couple reasons that we'll check out in a second. I also got this truck for really cheap. I only picked it up for $5,500, which for a 2014 F-150 is a super good deal. So if we take a walk around, some of the things that we're gonna need to do to the truck, you can tell the tires are completely trashed, so are the rims. So we're gonna be replacing the tires and the rims. And since it's gonna be taken off-road, we're also gonna be doing new suspension, adding a little bit of a lift kit, and then just new drivetrain components. That way it'll drive really nicely as well. The truck came with a really nice canopy, and then if we come back around, this is one of the features that makes it a super good truck to turn into an overland rig. The previous owner actually lived out of the truck for a little while, and he ended up installing a semi-truck cab heater into the bed. And that heater is tapped into the gas tank, and it has intake and exhaust that's already routed out and under the bed. So it's really seamless. All you have to do is flip a switch and the heater will kick on and you have a heated bed, which is really great if you're camping somewhere and it's a bit cold outside. And another super important aspect of having any vehicle that you're gonna take off-road is making sure it's reliable. And one of the reasons that this truck was so cheap is it has a few engine issues that we're gonna be sorting out. It needs a new timing chain, new cam phasers, and then just has quite a few oil leaks that we're gonna be replacing with just new seals. So that's what we'll be doing later on in this video. First time I filmed these clips, the audio was actually a little bit messed up, but we already have cleaned the truck up. Even though the audio doesn't work, I'll go ahead and roll that footage. And after that, let's start working on the engine. All right guys, so now that we got the truck all cleaned up, let's go ahead and put it in the garage and start working on the engine. As I mentioned earlier, I got this truck here for pretty cheap, and the reason it was actually so cheap is because the engine has a few issues. It's gonna need a new timing chain tensioner, new cam phasers, and then it also has a few oil leaks that are pretty bad, so we're gonna be replacing all those seals. And I've actually done this complete process before in one of my other videos, so if you want to check it out in more depth, you can go watch that video. But we're still going to be doing it in this video, just not as detailed. But without further ado, let's start working on the engine. We finally got the valve covers off, we got the front cover off, and now we can see that this is the timing chain here that we're going to be replacing. We're also going to be replacing these cam phasers right here, and then also the timing chain tensioner down here. Let's go ahead and remove both the timing chain and the cam phasers. It's now day 2 here of working on the engine. Yesterday we were actually able to get a lot accomplished. As you can tell, we got the valve covers off, we got the front cover off, And we set these little tools in here to hold timing on the cams when we take the phasers off, so that way it makes it really easy to reset timing. Plan today for the engine is to get all the old parts off and replace them with the new parts and get the engine all finished up. We're also going to be throwing on a new vacuum pump back here because it has a pretty bad oil leak. So that's that for the engine. But yesterday we had a little bit of an unfortunate accident when I was backing the truck up here into the garage. As you can tell, it's a pretty tight space in here, and I was using the backup camera to back up, to get as close as I could to the wall, and not thinking anything of it, I didn't realize that the hose reel was right up here, and the back glass got shattered because I backed straight into the hose reel right here. So it really sucks. I definitely learned my lesson to not just use the backup camera. So we're gonna have to figure out a way to replace this glass because I called around and it's about a month away and at least $600 or $700 to get a new one. So I might try and create my own out of plexiglass, but that is kind of unfortunate. But in the meantime, let's get working on the engine and get that all finished up. Been a bit longer than a few hours, but we finally got everything cleaned up. As you can see, all the surfaces on the engine are nice and clean. We are ready for the new vacuum pump back there. And then if you come over here, all these parts have been cleaned and are ready to go back onto the engine. All of them have the new seals in them. These are all the old seals, those are the old parts. And then over here are all the parts that still need, and seals that still need to go into the engine. But unfortunately, we had a bit of an issue, and when I was opening up parts, I was expecting to open up an OEM timing chain because I really only like to put OEM parts into the engine. And this right here is what I ended up getting. It's a Cloy's timing chain, which just looks really cheap, and on the bottom of the package right there, it says made in China. And that's the last part I want to be putting into my engine, is some made in China part. I'm really annoyed because right here on the website, this is the part that I ordered, has the Ford part number, genuine Ford. Obviously, that's not what I got. And this is really a big pain right now because these chains, the OEM ones, are actually on back order. If you don't know, if it's on back order, it pretty much means you have no idea when to expect the part. I called probably 20 dealerships today trying to find it, and I have one place to call tomorrow that I think might have a timing chain. So I'm crossing my fingers that I can get my hands on an OEM chain, because I would hate to have to put some made in China part in the engine and then have to redo the job later and replace it with an OEM part if I can't help it. So in the meantime, what I'm going to be doing is putting all the parts onto the engine that I can. So that includes the cam phasers, the spark plugs, and just getting everything ready so that way as soon as I get a timing chain, I can install it and the engine can be up and running as quick as possible. It's the next day here. As you can tell, we were able to get on the cam phasers right here. And then we also got the new vacuum pump on back there. We got all the old spark plugs out. What ended up happening is I had to call 41 Ford dealerships all the way from Washington State to Puerto Rico. And I was finally able to find one timing chain that they had in stock. And I got that overnighted. Here is the OEM timing chain that we're gonna be using, which I'm super excited about because I'd much rather put an OEM part into the truck than some cheap aftermarket part. So now that we have the OEM timing chain here, what we're gonna be doing is putting on the rest of the timing components, timing the engine, and then putting the front cover seal on, and the engine's just gonna go back together, and it should be pretty smooth. So let's get to work. Well, we finished up the engine. Everything is ready to go. All the connections have been double checked. All the clamps are tight. All the electrical is plugged in, and everything is ready to go. So what we're going to be doing now is just filling the engine with oil, and then also filling the coolant tank up with coolant. And then we're going to pull the fuel pump fuse and start the engine to let it prime the oil pressure. And then we'll put the fuel pump fuse back in, and then we'll start it for real, and that will be the first official start on all the new parts. Let's get this thing filled with fluid. Now it's full of fluid, the fluid levels are good, fuel pump fuse right there is pulled. So what we're going to do is crank the engine now till it builds oil pressure, just lubricate all the parts. Then if everything sounds good, we will put the fuse back in and start it for good, and then we will bleed the cooling system of air, and then the truck is ready to go. Okay guys, so here we are inside the truck. We are going to prime it for oil now. All right, there goes the oil pressure. So we are just gonna let this cycle a couple more times. All right, now I'm gonna set you guys up on the tripod so you can witness the first start. All right, here it is. The truck is running. So far, it sounds really good. In order to bleed the cooling system, you leave the cap off and you run max heat on the inside of the cab. So I'm gonna let that run until it gets up to temperature and the thermostat opens. So until then, it's just gonna idle, and then we will take it for a test drive. So everything's looking good, temperatures are good, no check engine light, engine's running smooth as power. I'd say that this is a success. The test drive was a success. The engine is running very smooth, no issues, everything is staying at the correct temperature, oil pressure is good. So all the work that we did is working as it should be. Now we have a reliable truck. If you come over here, here's all the parts that we replaced. As you can see right here, these are all the seals. And then here are all the components that we replaced, just getting rid of any possible potential failure and getting rid of all the oil leaks that this engine has. So now it is going to be a very reliable truck for many miles to come. So now that we have a reliable truck, the next step to making this more of an overland vehicle is to make sure that it can handle off-road really well. In the next video, these are all the parts we're going to be installing. We have new brake rotors, new brake pads, we have new Bilstein shocks, we have a leveling kit, we have wheel spacers, we have all front end components, tie rods, control arms, and then we have these really nice Ford Raptor rims that we're going to be putting on it. After all these parts get installed, the truck will be ready to be driven both on and off-road, and it should handle great off-road. So make sure you stick around for part 2 to see all these components get installed. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe for more.